Looking up at the night sky has inspired humanity for millennia. But today, 550 kilometers above Earth, a dramatic transformation is taking place largely outside public awareness. Since 2019, our orbital environment has experienced an unprecedented explosion in satellite numbers, from 2,000 to over 7,500 active satellites, with projections suggesting more than 100,000 by 2030. This video explores how this rapid industrialization of Earth's orbit is affecting wildlife, astronomy, and our cultural connection to the stars, raising profound questions about our stewardship of the cosmic environment we all share. The space above our heads is getting crowded at an alarming rate. Since 2019, we've witnessed the most rapid human-made change to our planet's immediate environment, with active satellites more than tripling from approximately 2,000 to over 7,500 today. SpaceX leads this orbital rush, having launched over 5,000 Starlink satellites already, with regulatory approval for 12,000 and applications pending for 30,000 more. But they're not alone. OneWeb, Amazon's Project Kuiper, and China's G60 Starlink are all developing competing mega-constellations. Experts predict we could see over 100,000 satellites orbiting Earth by 2030. Each constellation forms a dynamic, moving web that reflects sunlight toward Earth, particularly visible during dawn and dusk hours. This creates what astronomers have termed the Mega-Constellation effect, where artificial objects outshine 99% of visible stars. What's most remarkable about this transformation is both its speed and the minimal public discourse surrounding such a fundamental change to our relationship with the night sky. The environmental impacts of this satellite boom are just beginning to be understood. Recent research from the Max Planck Institute for Ornithology has revealed concerning effects on wildlife that has evolved under consistent night sky conditions for millions of years. Their 2023 study tracked European nightjars during migration and found a direct correlation between satellite passes overhead and course corrections made by these birds, which navigate primarily by starlight. The energy cost is substantial. Nightjars exhibited a 16% increase in energy expenditure during nights with heavy satellite visibility compared to cloudy nights when satellites were obscured. This additional energy burden could significantly impact survival rates during the already challenging migratory periods. For species that have evolved precise navigational systems based on celestial cues, the artificial brightening of the night sky represents an evolutionary challenge they've had no time to adapt to. The impacts extend beyond birds to other crucial components of our ecosystems. Entomologists at the University of Edinburgh have documented how increasing artificial light at night from satellite reflections is disrupting pollination patterns. Their field studies in rural Scotland showed a 22% reduction in flower visitations by moths during nights with high satellite visibility compared to control periods. This is particularly concerning because moths are critical nocturnal pollinators that many plants depend on. The disruption reaches into aquatic ecosystems as well, where zooplankton's vertical migration patterns, a critical mechanism for carbon sequestration in our oceans, show measurable alterations under brightening night skies. These tiny organisms typically rise to surface waters at night to feed and descend during daylight to avoid predators. When artificial light disrupts this pattern, it can alter marine food webs and potentially affect one of our planet's important carbon sinks. Dr. Kira Cornelius of the International Dark Sky Association has been studying these effects comprehensively. Her team's 2022 meta-analysis documented physiological changes in 212 species across 14 taxonomic groups in response to artificial night lighting. What makes satellite-reflected light particularly concerning is that it reaches previously pristine wilderness areas that ground-based light pollution had not affected. When we alter light regimes that have remained consistent for millions of years of evolutionary history, we're essentially conducting an unplanned global experiment, explains Dr. Cornelius. These effects cascade through ecosystems in complex ways. Predator-prey relationships that depend on specific light conditions become unbalanced. Breeding behaviors triggered by light cues occur at inappropriate times. Plant flowering and growth patterns shift. The full extent of these ecological ripple effects remains unknown, but early indicators suggest we're altering fundamental environmental relationships that underpin biodiversity. The Milky Way, once visible to nearly every human who ever lived, is now hidden from approximately 80% of humanity due to ground-based light pollution. Satellite constellations are extending this loss to regions previously considered dark sky sanctuaries. The last refuges where people could connect with the night sky as our ancestors did. This loss has profound cultural implications. Indigenous knowledge systems worldwide depend on star visibility for navigation, timing agricultural activities, and maintaining cultural continuity. For countless generations, human cultures have oriented themselves using celestial navigation, planned plantings and harvests according to stellar calendars, and woven rich mythologies around recognizable patterns in the stars. As these patterns become increasingly obscured by artificial satellites, we risk losing not just scientific opportunities but cultural heritage that has been passed down for millennia. The night sky represents one of humanity's oldest shared cultural experiences, now being fundamentally altered without the consent or even awareness of most people. Professional astronomy faces what many scientists describe as an existential challenge from satellite mega-constellations. The Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile represents a case in point. This $473 million facility, designed to create the deepest wide-field survey of the universe, estimates that up to 30% of its images during twilight hours will contain satellite streaks by 2025. Unlike city light pollution, which observatories can mitigate by choosing remote locations, satellite reflections cannot be escaped regardless of location. In response to these challenges, the International Astronomical Union established the Center for the Protection of the Dark and Quiet Sky from Satellite Constellation Interference in February 2022. However, regulatory frameworks remain underdeveloped. Astronomers are developing sophisticated algorithms to remove satellite trails from images, but these solutions cannot recover data that is obscured during the critical moment of observation. This is particularly problematic for time-sensitive phenomena like near-Earth asteroids and supernovae, where missing the initial moments of an event can mean losing irreplaceable scientific data. Beyond visual interference, satellites create another significant problem for astronomy. Dr. Aparna Venkatasan of the University of San Francisco highlights that many satellite constellations use frequencies that overlap with those critical for radio astronomy. The Square Kilometre Array, the world's largest radio telescope under construction in Australia and South Africa, may face significant data contamination from satellite transmissions, she explains. This radio frequency interference has become so pervasive that a 2023 study in Nature Astronomy estimated radio astronomers now spend approximately 40% of their observation time developing and implementing interference mitigation techniques. That's valuable research time previously devoted to astronomical discovery now redirected to simply filtering out human-made noise. Radio astronomy is crucial for studying phenomena that don't emit visible light, including the early universe, pulsars, and the detection of potential extraterrestrial signals. As our orbital environment becomes increasingly saturated with transmitting satellites, we risk drowning out these faint cosmic whispers that help us understand our universe. The impacts extend beyond professional facilities to the thousands of amateur astronomers who contribute valuable data to scientific research. The American Association of Variable Star Observers, a citizen science organization that has contributed critical astronomical data for over a century, reported in 2023 that volunteer submissions had declined 18% as participants grew frustrated with satellite photobombing. Amateur astrophotographers report increasing difficulty capturing uncontaminated images of deep sky objects that require long exposure times. Each satellite streak ruins a photograph that might have taken hours to capture. This erosion of citizen science participation represents a significant loss to astronomical research, which historically relies on distributed observation networks to monitor phenomena that professional observatories lack the capacity to track continuously. Citizen astronomers often make important discoveries of comets, asteroids, and supernovae, serving as a crucial complement to professional research. As their ability to contribute becomes compromised, our collective astronomical awareness narrows. The rapid deployment of mega-constellations has occurred in a regulatory environment designed for an era when satellite launches were rare and expensive. The United Nations Outer Space Treaty of 1967, the primary international framework governing space activities, contains no provisions addressing light pollution or the environmental impacts of satellite constellations. In the United States, the Federal Communications Commission, which grants launch approvals, only began requiring environmental impact assessments for satellite constellations in November 2022, after thousands were already deployed. Some satellite operators have implemented voluntary mitigation measures. SpaceX's VISOR-SAT design reduces reflectivity by approximately 55%, while OneWeb has positioned its constellation at higher altitudes where reflections are less visible. However, These voluntary measures lack standardization or enforcement mechanisms. Without comprehensive international regulation, companies face few incentives to prioritize environmental concerns over operational efficiency and cost considerations. The current regulatory framework treats space as a frontier to be exploited rather than a commons to be protected. Beyond visibility concerns, the sheer number of satellites creates unprecedented challenges for space traffic management. The European Space Agency tracked over 30,000 collision avoidance maneuvers in 2022, a tenfold increase from 2018. Each maneuver requires fuel expenditure that shortens satellite lifespans, potentially accelerating the replacement cycle and increasing launch frequency. Satellite operators face diminishing returns as their constellations must increasingly dodge other constellations, creating what space policy experts have termed a tragedy of the commons in low Earth orbit. This situation becomes increasingly complex as more operators enter the market. Each collision avoidance maneuver is costly in terms of fuel and operational complexity, yet the alternative, satellite collisions, would generate debris fields that could trigger cascading collisions, potentially rendering entire orbital bands unusable. The 2009 collision between an operational Iridium communication satellite and a defunct Russian Cosmos satellite created thousands of debris fragments that continue to threaten other satellites today. With exponentially more satellites in orbit, the risk of such events increases dramatically. The economic promise of global internet connectivity creates a challenging balancing act between technological advancement and environmental protection. Satellite internet has the potential to connect approximately 3 billion currently unserved people, potentially democratizing internet access and enabling technological leapfrogging in developing regions. These benefits are substantial and should not be dismissed. Communities without terrestrial internet infrastructure could gain access to educational resources, healthcare information, economic opportunities, and emergency services. However, these benefits come with unprecedented ecological, astronomical, and cultural costs that were barely considered during the rapid deployment phase. Moving forward requires multidisciplinary collaboration between aerospace engineers, ecologists, astronomers, indigenous knowledge keepers, and policy experts. Several promising initiatives have emerged, including the Dark and Quiet Skies for Science and Society Working Group under UN auspices, which published comprehensive recommendations in 2021 that balance connectivity goals with environmental and scientific preservation. These include technical standards for satellite visibility, orbital spacing requirements to reduce collision risks, and designated protection zones for astronomical observations. The ultimate challenge may be philosophical, reconciling our technological ambitions with our responsibility as stewards of Earth's immediate cosmic environment. Dr. Meredith Rawls of the University of Washington's Dirac Institute captured this tension in her testimony to Congress when she noted, "The night sky is the one landscape all humanity shares. Its alteration should require the same careful deliberation we would give to modifying any global natural resource." This perspective invites us to consider orbital space not as an unlimited frontier but as an extension of our planetary commons, a shared resource requiring collaborative governance. The current transformation of our orbital environment has occurred with remarkable speed and minimal public input, despite affecting a resource that belongs to all humanity and all future generations. Finding the right balance between technological progress and preservation of our cosmic environment may determine whether future generations will inherit both the benefits of global connectivity and the wonder of a star-filled night sky that has inspired humanity since our earliest days. This is not simply a technical or regulatory challenge, but a question of values. What kind of relationship do we want to have with the cosmos that surrounds our planet? The satellite mega-constellation boom represents a pivotal moment in humanity's relationship with space. In just a few years, we've transformed Earth's orbital environment more dramatically than in all previous decades of space exploration combined. This transformation brings both promise and peril. While global connectivity could bridge digital divides and create opportunities for billions, we must acknowledge the ecological disruptions to wildlife that navigate by starlight, the impediments to scientific discovery as astronomers struggle with satellite interference, and the cultural loss as the night sky that inspired human imagination for millennia becomes increasingly industrialized. The path forward requires thoughtful regulation that treats orbital space as a global commons rather than an unlimited frontier. It demands innovative technical solutions from satellite operators to minimize their environmental footprint. Most importantly, it calls for a broader public conversation about what we value in our relationship with the cosmos. The night sky belongs to all humanity, past, present, and future. How we balance technological progress with preservation of this shared heritage will reveal much about our wisdom as a species. The question is not whether we should advance space technology, but how we can do so while maintaining our connection to the stars that have guided us throughout human history. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for updates. Your feedback is appreciated. We hope to see you again.